Hello everyone, welcome back to another tutorial. So in today's tutorial we'll learn about JavaScript from HTML. So before we start, I'd like you to leave a like and hit the subscribe button. So let's get into this video. So in the previous video we installed JavaScript onto our computer, but it will be interesting to note that JavaScript was originally intended to run on only browsers. So every browser in your computer has a JavaScript engine. On Google Chrome, the JavaScript engine is V8, and on Microsoft Edge, the engine is Chakra. So with Notepad and with a browser, you can actually run JavaScript. But in 2009, a really smart software engineer called Ryan Dahl felt that it would be better to run JavaScript from your terminal. So he took the Google's JavaScript engine V8 and put it inside a C++ program called Node. That's why we had to install Node.js in order to run JavaScript in our terminal. So with that being said, let's dive into this video. So because I said you need to run JavaScript from your browser, it means that when we're using JavaScript, we have to use a HTML file. To go ahead with this, we use an exclamation mark and we press the tab button to create a boilerplate. And then for the title, I'm just going to change it to JavaScript Tutorial. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come at the ending of my body. So there's nothing in my body tag. So make sure you're at the ending of your body tag. That's when you create the script tag. So inside the script tag, this is where we're going to write our JavaScript code. So the first thing we're going to look at is console.log. We saw this in the other video. For a hello world. So let's go to our browser and take a look at this. So I'm opening index.html. And when I open index.html, you see that the web page is blank. But if I go to inspect, when you come to the console, you see hello world. And anytime we say console, we're referring to this little section over here. So the next command I'm going to show you is console.1. I'm going to refresh the page. You see the highlighting changes to yellow. The last thing we're going to look at is console.error. And you see that the highlighting is red. So that's good. The next thing we're going to look at is an alert JavaScript function. So I'm sure that everyone who has used the web browser has seen this at one time or the other. So I'm just going to show you instead of having to explain this. So we're going to refresh, and over here you see this pop out saying warning. So this is what alert does. So the next thing we're going to look at are document commands. So we looked at console commands, and I said that console refers to this small section over here. So when we talk about document, we refer to this section which is over here. So the first document command we'll be looking at is document.write. So I'm going to go with a h1 tag, and then I'm going to close the h1 tag, and we'll go with hello world. Then I'm going to, sorry about that, I forgot to put this in parentheses. So remember that you have to put this in parentheses for this command to work. So when I go over here and I refresh, you see we get hello world. That's the beauty of JavaScript. So we can actually change HTML from over here. The next thing we're going to look at is this command, which is get element by ID. So if you've ever used HTML before, you would have heard of ID tags, but if you have not, I'll explain it to you. So I'm going to create a div, and then inside the div I'll create a header tag, and in this header tag I'll just write welcome in between. So now, what is an ID? An ID is a specific reference to a particular tag. So in JavaScript you can have all sorts of tags. You can have the paragraph tags, but an ID is specific to only this tag here. So when you're using HTML, the only tag that can have this ID is the h1 tag. So we're going to get the element using the ID. So with this h1 tag, I'm going to use main, and then over here we're just going to come with main. Then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go with inner HTML. But before we run the code, I'll just comment this line, and when I comment this line, sorry, that's not the way you comment JavaScript. That's a problem with Visual Studio. So I'm commenting this line, and let's just go to our file and see what it has. So this is our HTML file. When I refresh it, you see it has welcome. So I'm going to use JavaScript to change the value that is contained in this tag, which is welcome, and you'll see that the value will change over here. So I'm just going to uncomment the line, and then when I go with .inner HTML, I'm going to equate it to hello there with exclamation marks. So when I come and refresh, you see how I was able to change the value using JavaScript. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create an input form, and then that form will have a button accompanying it. So what we're going to do is that once the user clicks the button, we're going to get the value that the user typed in the input box, and then we're going to display it as an alert message. So let's go ahead with that. So we're just going to get rid of this, and we're going to go ahead and create an input form. So we're going to go with this. We're going to go with type equals to text, and then we're going to have a placeholder. We're just going to be enter any value, and then the next thing we're going to do, this is the most important out of all of these attributes, is to create an ID tag. So the ID tag is going to be my input. The next thing we're going to do is create a button, and the type is going to be button. And we're going to create a second attribute, which is onClick. This is where we're going to impute a JavaScript function. So the value of our button is going to be enter. So we haven't looked at functions yet, but we'll look at functions in this video, and in another video I will go into functions with greater detail. So just take this with a pinch of salt. So this is a function called my input, and I'm not really going to explain what a function is in this video, but just take a function as a shortcut. So I'm going to type in my input, copy this and paste in here. So this my input here will perform any command I write inside this function. So first we're going to create a variable called my input, and then we're going to use the document function as well. Then the second thing we're going to do is go with get element by ID, and then you see we have an ID tag, get element by ID, we have the input ID tag. The last thing we're going to do now, the last time we looked at inner HTML, this time we're going to look at value. So value actually obtains the value that is written inside this, and then finally we're just going to use my alert on our variable my input, and I believe that should work. So let's take a look at our page. I'm going to refresh our page, and then I'm just going to type gibberish, and you see that we get it over here. So that's the net for this video. So if you found this video helpful, once again I'd like to ask you to leave a like and subscribe to the video. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you watching it to the end. See you in another video. you.